Day 2, Fearless.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Love, last name spelled Love. I'm the founder of jenniferlove.com and the co-founder of Nibmore.
Hi, I'm Selene Diaris, Seleyn DEYARUS. I'm the executive director of Fearless. So, welcome to Fearless in Studio. We are delighted today to have with us Jennifer Love. Jennifer is the co-founder of Nibmore and is also the founder of jenniferlove.com. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's go into Nibmore, which is how you and I met one another. Love your products.
Thank you. I love our products too.
I'm so glad. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It's a problem if you don't like your own product.
Yes, that would be not a good sign.
Yes.
So, why don't you share a little bit about how did that come into fruition? You have a partner who you founded that with.
Yes.
So I would love to know, what inspired the beginning, and then there's some other things I want to follow up with after we hear that part of your story.
Yeah, you bet. So I have kind of a fascinating journey into food. I had to create a new relationship with food, and we can talk about that in a few moments.
Okay.
But I had to form a new relationship with food, and so I knew business. I had been an entrepreneur several times over since I was a child.
Wow.
I come from
beyond the lemonade stand.
Beyond the lemonade stand, yes. I cleaned houses as a kid. I had a whole thing going on.
Wow.
And my father was an entrepreneur as well, so it's kind of in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
But starting Nibmore was really me trying to figure out how to use what I knew, my skill set in business, to form that new relationship with food, because I had an eating disorder. For 10 years.
Wow.
I struggled with bulimia. And it's not like a drug or an alcohol where you just get to leave it behind. With food, you have to eat.
Correct.
And you have to figure out how to form a new emotional relationship, a new physical relationship. You have to learn your body. Your body has to readjust.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to relearn and rewire. And this is something that I've recently only begun to talk about because it's been such a vulnerable thing for me. It's been such a private matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's been something I've been ashamed of, and afraid to talk about because, oh my gosh, what is everyone going to think about me? I was perfect, Jennifer, and now I'm not perfect anymore. Oh my gosh, the world is ending!
Cut now!
And when I finally let go of that, recently that's just happened. It's just been a fascinating journey to get to this place today, and really through Nibmore. So I've recently said that it was chocolate and compassion that saved my life.
Wow, those are two beautiful things to combine, actually.
It is. And, I didn't know that I was going to go into chocolate when we started Nibmore.
Mm-hmm.
I enrolled in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition with setting the intention that I was going to meet like-minded people, learn more about holistic health and about food. And I was doing so much exploration and so much learning and relearning with my body at that point. And it was the first weekend that I met my business partner at Nibmore, Heather.
Really?
Terry, yeah. And we went to a chocolate party together. I invited her to go to a chocolate party. We went and had a great time, and she started making some chocolate and took it to the cast on Broadway that she was working with, and called me up and said, "Hey Jen, I want you to try this chocolate because I know you've got this business background. I just want to get your input and see what you think." And it just kind of went from there. We ended up launching Nibmore. We met in January of 2009. We went to the chocolate party in February of 2009. We started the business in April of 2009, and we launched our first sales in July of 2009.
Wow.
I do not recommend this for any product company.
That's fast.
It was really fast. It was super
So
fast.
you got all your packaging designed, everything done.
The
in that amount
website,
of
the
time?
packaging design, the legal, the banking, like the formation,
Wow.
everything done from April to July.
Well, you obviously do have business acumen, my dear. That's impressive.
Well, I don't recommend it because, there are a lot of things to figure out, a lot of mistakes that we
Mhm.
could have corrected if we had slowed things down. So I actually don't recommend moving that fast.
Right.
There's typically no need to do that, but we wanted to launch from the stage of IIN when we were
Right. You
graduating.
had an objective.
We had an
and-
objective.
yes,
We
again,
had an audience that we were going to be able
Mhm.
to really broadcast this out
Sure.
to, and we felt like that was important enough to speed it up and speed it along, so we did.
Fun.
So that's kind of the story behind how Knitmore got its start.
I want to circle back to the eating disorder
Yeah.
because I think what's really important is a lot of women, including myself, have had distorted relationships with our body image
So
and our
many
notion
women.
of beauty
Yeah.
and what we'll do to maintain our own distorted notion of perfection.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because I watched myself go through it for, a decade. I watch young girls go through it now. I had a conversation now that, that I'm opening up, it's like people are flooding in to tell me their story.
I'm sure.
I've even spoken with a Marine
Hmm.
who was, an active, long-time Marine who had a really long-time eating disorder and privately disclosed this, had never told anyone in his entire life
Wow.
that he had struggled with this. This affects all socioeconomic. It affects both genders. Women are, I think even more highly affected by this. But it is something that I think is impacted greatly by the press and by media. Marcy mentioned this with fashion and her
Mhm.
brand, really trying to change this in the world
Right.
with eco-fashion.
Right.
The media really has to change. I think there's some interesting things that are happening that I'm starting to see in New York. That's where I'm based, is based out of New York. There's a rising, even with plus size models that are starting to stand up and say, it's okay that I'm size 12.
Right.
Doesn't mean I have a problem. I'm still, a beautiful person. I'm still a beautiful woman
Right.
because I'm a plus size which by the way starts at 8.
Then I am
Yes.
a plus size
Yes.
beautiful
Yes.
woman. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Me as well.
All right, baby.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. And
No.
we're beautiful women in our
Absolutely.
bodies that we should own and be proud of and
They're
feel really
voluptuous
good
and
about.
fabulous.
Exactly. And this idea that we have to be perfect really.
Well, perfection is a note. It's an insane concept in the first place because you can define it in a multitude of ways.
Yes.
If you just go with what is, there's perfection in what is what is. So the notion that there's something beyond what is where we're lost.
Yeah.
Because to accept is to be happy.
Yeah.
To not be in a state of acceptance is where we open that gateway for all of the unintended consequences of non-acceptance.
And I think it's about also how we're defining beauty.
Truly,
And where does beauty start?
As my grandmother said, it's an inside job.
That's right. That's right. I agree. And so my heart really breaks. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think part of me really stepping out and making myself really vulnerable
Mhm.
in this conversation
Right.
is saying, I see that there needs to be change that needs to happen, in our food system. I see that there needs to be change that needs to happen with us and how we relate to food as human beings. The emotional connection that we have to it,
Right.
that needs to start to change as well.
Truly.
And that really does affect what's going on with our food system as well.
It does. I mean, it's interesting how many layers we have at play right now in our food system, from the lack of disclosure about ingredients that are
Yeah.
generated from genetically engineered plants and seeds,
Yeah.
to the way in which we've projected a notion of beauty and how you attain that through your food.
Yeah.
And there is a real opportunity to move towards, wholesome food.
Mm-hmm.
Eaten in a balanced way
That's right.
is how we really attain true health.
And how we're listening to ourselves, it's like really in that journey for me, in relearning how to have a relationship with food, it was really listening to myself, really reconnecting to myself, really sitting in the uncomfortableness of what I was of feeling in the moments where I wanted to go binge and purge because that was what was numbing me out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what took the pain away.
Right. It
In
was
that
your drug,
moment,
in essence.
it was my drug. It really
Right,
was.
Right.
And so instead of doing that, really just sitting with what is going on for me.
Sure. In all of these ways in which we as human beings act out of our discomfort, obviously the real opportunity is to look inward and find out what is that core discomfort, what is providing this desire I have to escape myself.
Yeah, and so when I say, chocolate and compassion saved my life.
Yes.
The chocolate was the journey, Nidmore was the journey to really dive in and figure that relationship out. But the compassion, I want to circle around to that,
Please.
if that's okay.
Of course.
Self-compassion, and Christine Neff does a lot of amazing work on this. She's done some work, I think was out of California, Berkeley. I believe she was, and don't totally quote me on that. But I actually heard her speak at Emerging Women here in Boulder last fall, and I sat there in the chair going, oh my gosh, this is what I did!
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's what I have coined my own term, becoming my own best friend.
Mm-hmm.
In those moments of darkness, I had to find that compassion for myself. In the moments where I wanted to go binge and then purge, in that sink and my head's there and I'm there. I'm like in the moment, I'm doing it.
Right.
Rather than the negative, like really awful yelling that I was doing to myself, I started saying, wait a minute. If my friend was here, if my friend Jennifer was standing here throwing up in the sink, would I be yelling at her?
Right. Yeah. That is the
No.
powerful transition.
I wouldn't yell at her, right?
No,
You wouldn't yell at your friend.
Of course not.
You would be like, what can I do to help you? We're going to get through this. You're going to
You'd
overcome
be stroking
this.
your head. Oh,
And stroking
sweetie,
your
what can I
head.
do for you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's really changing that conversation and finding the compassion for myself because no one else was going to do it.
And interestingly, your name is like what you've been most learning
Yes, it's
to
true.
be and do with yourself.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
To give and to receive love.
Yeah, because it is the core. The root of being able to be present in the world in a really powerful, loving way is to have a core of self-love.
That's so true.
Because out of self-love, if we can learn to love ourselves, because I think all human beings, or a lot of human beings, struggle with self-doubt, self-criticism, and non-acceptance of themselves. And how we play that out is different, but a lot of us experience that kind of incongruency within.
It's
And
true.
to arrive at a place where you take yourself on, you're willing to look into the shadow material, you're willing to sort of see that which we're less comfortable with about ourselves and to embrace, that's where the true amazingness of what we are can really come into full blossom.
Sure. As uncomfortable and transformational as it is, it's like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly.
Absolutely. And it's essential, and I think I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that you're willing to talk about your experience, because obviously you're not alone. I remember in my 20s, I would, eat a whole bag of potato chips or something, and then I would go, oh my gosh, now I'm going to get fat. Mm-hmm. And I would stick my finger down my throat.
And that conversation starts happening, right?
Yeah. It's like, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. I mean, it didn't last a terribly long time, but it was this trigger point that I would use on occasion to just like undo my moment of, feeling like I consumed too much food. It's like a gluttony thing or whatever you want to call it. But the fact that so many women and men suffer from this attack on self,
Yeah.
it's a really wonderful opportunity to be one of the voices to help make it okay to acknowledge
Yes.
and okay to come out and explore how you can transcend.
And one of the things, I'm working on right now is helping people realize that, like, let's just remove the shame.
Right.
Let's get rid of the shame. Let's just stand in the light, and then let's just acknowledge who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And then transformation begins to happen from there.
It does.
Yeah.
It truly does. Wonderful. That is, that's a powerful piece. So you've been in Nibmore. You've
Yes.
had this personal component to doing this business. And in the business, you are creating a new relationship with right now. Can you say something about that?
Yes. It's bittersweet.
Ah,
honestly.
So some really dark chocolate.
Exactly. Great analogy. Yes. So 5.5 years in to Nibmore, I've now stepped out as CEO. I went to the board a few months ago and said, I'm going to step out as CEO. Wasn't sure in what capacity I was going to remain.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 weeks ago today, I resigned from Nibmore
Wow.
as the CEO. And about a year ago, I started my website, jenlove.com. And it's really a culmination of my desire to help emerging entrepreneurs and brands with product companies
Mm-hmm.
with the sales and marketing component of their business. And really I'm focusing, my kind of special twist is relationships. And relationships transcend so many things. It's like really, truly relationships and sales. It's what drives sales.
Truly. Oh, absolutely. That is what
Networking,
it is.
it's about relationships.
Yes.
So it's that conversation of, yes, we need to understand the mechanics of sales and marketing. We need to be able to measure the metrics of sales and marketing, but let's make this a bigger conversation about the humanitarian piece.
Right.
The humanity piece, the relationship piece. And so that's what jenlove.com is really focusing on. And in some way, this conversation around me stepping out with the eating disorder, I'll be doing some work to support some organizations to really bring this to light.
Mm-hmm.
Writing a book this year
Are you?
on this particular topic. Yeah.
Wow.
And my whole goal is really just to help. That's where my desire is. That's where I started years ago, as a business consultant working with big CPG, like the GlaxoSmithKlines of the world, pharmaceutical, which I would not, I'm not so proud of, but it's, it's where I was.
Right.
And it's
of course.
okay.
It is.
And so I have the big, work as, allergy product, international, project, taking a product international to early stage, very gritty, scrappy chocolate company, making that into a national company as well. And now taking this culmination of experience and my heart, and I have this symbol, on my website. It's like, the picture of a heart over my eye, and really that's to symbolize that we have to lead with our hearts.
Absolutely.
And in business, in life, and everything, if we want to be wildly successful, that's where we have to start. And so taking this to entrepreneurs to really help them, build sustainable, healthy, vibrant businesses. And sustainability is a really big conversation for me as well. It is where I live and breathe and want to focus and help change the world positively through sustainability. There's so much that can be done. There's so much work that needs to be done. And you and I have been talking about this the last few days. It's like there's this like uprising happening right now.
Right.
In the world of sustainability. It's time. The time is now.
It is.
And the fact that I've stepped out of Nibmore now, while the bittersweetness is, it's my baby that I just left behind,
right.
But my baby's in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time to go help others, support others. So now I'm acting as a consultant and as a business advisor and a small, a partner in a small way to a few emerging brands. And this is where I'm going to go out into the world and help these companies that are really doing good in the world, really focusing on changing and impacting the world. I'm working with a company called Lollyware right now,
Mm-hmm.
which I couldn't be more proud of these two women. They're industrial designers who have their heart in the right place.
That's awesome.
And they're a biodegradable and edible packaging company. I mean, think about the application of that. It's so huge.
It's vast.
It's
vast.
so huge. We can replace plastic cups that are destroying so much.
Yes.
So these are the kinds of companies that I want to go forward into the world and support and build up and help.
Well, they are the fearless type of brand
They are.
that we would
They
be
absolutely
interested
are.
in as well. I mean, what excites me about what you're saying is taking obviously your opened heart and your passion for, as we've been having conversations with a lot of different voices, business is the most powerful force for driving good.
Yeah.
We have the capacity in activating entrepreneurs and businesses at different stages to examine what they're up to and to look for ways to always do it with more consciousness, more environmental awareness, and taking care of your people. I'm sure you're familiar with B Corp.
Absolutely. Yes.
So are any of your companies in the B Corp space?
They are. Actually, Lollyware is working on the B Corp certification right now.
Oh, great.
And yes, many of them are either working on it or already have it.
Because I think that, why don't you share a little bit about what B Corp is and why it's an important part of this equation that you're working inside of?
It's really representing being a responsible business. It's really representing a whole nother level of being a sustainable company and how you're operating your operations, your values. There are actually two different levels of B Corp. Most people don't even know this,
Mm-hmm.
but there are two different levels, and you can have B Corp come in and hold you accountable to your values of sustainability, and they will come in and basically do an audit of
Mm-hmm.
sorts
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that you are actually living and practicing what you're putting out there as your values and your sustainability
Right.
statement, commitment. And then there's a lesser level, I don't know if that's the right word, lesser, but there's another level where they will basically say, yes, this is what you're doing, this is how you're doing it, great, and they will stamp you as a B Corp. And so B Corp to me is really representing the next wave, the next generation of business. It's really how business should be being done
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Right.
It's really where we should be starting from. And it's really recognizing those businesses, those entrepreneurs, those leaders who are committed to not doing ill will to our environments, not doing ill will to humanity and health, and to moving forward in a positive way.
My company, Best Organics, is a certified B Corporation, and
Right.
the assessment process, the impact assessment, is an amazing tool.
Yeah.
And what's exciting is a lot of businesses are using the impact assessment to look at their practices, to get that 360 view of, what are their governance practices, how do they rank on diversity in their organizations, how do they rank in their relationships with their supply chain, and what do they know about their supply chain?
Right.
I mean,
the transparency,
it's
like how
really,
far are you going down?
Yes. That the thing I love about the B Corp process to become a B Corp, and then as you stay in it, you do get this opportunity to be audited. In fact, it's part of, once you become a certified B Corp, you have to re-up every 2 years, and they do random audits to just come in and check out if you're really able and maintaining your assertions about what you're doing.
Which is great.
It is.
I think it's
it makes it a
fantastic.
high integrity proposition,
Exactly.
and it's not greenwashing. You can't get there through make believe.
Yeah.
It's real, it's authentic, and it's not a low bar. It's a really high bar. And I have a small company, and it was quite the process to go through, and I learned a lot of interesting things about my business by virtue of doing that assessment process. And then when they come back with the questions, that you then provide more documentation, which I thought was a really, again, just the credibility of the B Lab process and what they've manifested is
amazing.
It's very awesome, and it's serving an incredible international good. And I love that they are working on the legislative dimension in the United States to create benefit corporations to protect companies that are seeking to have a social mission driven business, to not be held under the old guard rule of maximize shareholder value. This is stakeholder value.
So profit sustainability. It's not just let's churn them and burn them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I was having a conversation with Zena, and we were talking about, and I would be curious what your thoughts are on this, about Zena Muzica, who founded Zena's Gypsy Teas and is the author of Life by the Cup. We've been talking about the pattern in business with a high pressure for exit strategies versus the cultivation of sustainable enterprise that lives on for a long time, that actually becomes an opportunity for right livelihood for a lot of people. And that there's an interesting, in our discussions, like a conundrum between some of those aspirations and then what happens when like venture capital comes into the equation.
It does change things.
It does. So what are your thoughts on that space inside of an emergent capitalism that might look and behave a little differently? Is that a possibility?
Oh, that's such a great question. And this is every entrepreneur's dilemma. I feel like there should be a book about this. Entrepreneur's dilemma.
Take a note.
It is really the struggle of, regardless of whether you're setting the intention up front to, be acquired or not. I feel like some entrepreneurs do set that intention, but I feel like a lot, especially in this space, don't. But once they take in that capital, things begin to change, expectations begin to change. There are angels, there are VC funds that are, socially mission driven. They're rare.
Right.
And even with those funds, there's an end goal typically. There's some kind of end state that we're working to all get to.
Right, and I think a return is an appropriate part of the expectation.
Absolutely.
But it's like, how can we manifest that without some of, I would almost say, destructive things that can happen that really undermine a lot of businesses, that take the control away from the heart of the company, which is the founder. That's their baby, as you were saying before. And oftentimes when these capital moments happen, there's a shift of who's in charge.
I think there need to be some funds. I mean, I'm going to challenge both sides of the street here. I think we need some people and some funds that really step up, that have the experience. I'm not talking about, investors that are coming to the table who don't have experience, because we as entrepreneurs need that. Not just the money, we need the experience too.
Right, absolutely.
But who can step up and see this conversation, see this level of sustainability in business and how profitability is more than just the numbers.
Right.
And we need a rise of investors in this space to do that. And we also need entrepreneurs who push back and say, no, that's not okay for me. And that's not okay for this business. And if you're going to be a part of it, if you're going to invest here, then this is how it's going to be.
I think that is an important piece, and I think it's an interesting. We live here in Boulder, Colorado. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and Boulder is an amazing epicenter for the natural and organic product space. And I'm always fascinated and amazed at how many entrepreneurs beeline it for Boulder to
3 of my friends moved from New York to Boulder with food companies in the last 6 months.
well, there you go.
Yeah, they literally beelined.
They did it. They beelined it. Well, and there's a good reason. I mean, we have an incredible supportive culture here.
It's true.
And there is a real nurturance for entrepreneurs coming here. And I think a piece that you're kind of activating in this conversation is, I think it is an important conversation to start having with entrepreneurs to help them feel empowered on this level, because when you're in that 16-hour-a-day push,
Yeah.
and you're not knowing how you're going to make that next delivery happen because there's no money in the bank.
It's terrifying.
It's very terrifying.
And you can start to make compromises.
This is the thing. It puts you in that space of, I'm in desperation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the right, in essence, to make that part of the conditions, because what if they walk away?
But this is where I think the conversation and the shift in the perspective needs to start to change. I think in that conversation of I don't have the right, I think the conversation needs to move to I have a right as a responsible business to protect.
The integrity of what
That's
I'm
right.
manifesting here.
That's right.
Right.
I have the responsibility to do this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very true. Well, I think this will be an interesting pulse to keep an eye on.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
maybe there's some support ideas that could manifest that would allow for some kind of, I don't know.
How to manage the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, how to
Yes.
manage it. Yeah, I think this entrepreneur's dilemma is very valid
Mm-hmm.
from so many different angles.
And I've lived it.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
I've gone through it. I understand it. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. It's difficult. I mean, I've lived it too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fantastic privilege
Mm-hmm.
to run one's own business.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the things that you learn through that process. It's a real gift. It's
It
so
is.
different from being inside of large organizations where you're playing a particular role. Because inside of an entrepreneurial venture, you're generally wearing a lot of hats. You're juggling many, many different activities and responsibilities. So it's a
Yeah.
very powerful teaching ground
It is.
in a lot of ways. So as you
Yes.
are taking what you've learned in to work with other companies, what would you say is like your most precious jewel that you bring forward when you're working with companies?
I just got this question the other day,
You
actually.
did?
I did. There's a company I'm mentoring who asked me a very similar question. And, one of the things that I told him, and I'm going to leave it, I'm going to kind of circle back to the humanity element.
Okay.
There's so many things I could share here in this, but the one thing that I would say is don't lose touch with yourself. Stay balanced. And if that means that you have to take that time out to go run, to dance, to paint, to read, to play the guitar, I don't care what it is. Without your creative juices flowing, you are not going to be an effective leader. You are not going to run your business well. You're going to be tired and exhausted and empty. And when you're empty, you have nothing to give. And so fill yourself up, and that allows you to be an innovator in your space as well. Because when your creative juices and energies are flowing, you start to see how your creation can continue, to move forward. And so that would be, I think, my number one bit of advice.
That's a beautiful piece of wisdom. Absolutely. I mean, that's applicable to all of us.
It is.
In whatever we're doing in life, to not lose sight. It goes back to self-love.
It does.
Absolutely, what we
Mhm.
started with.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
This was
what a
great
delight.
conversation.
Thank you very much for your time.
You bet.
This has been a wonderful conversation on In Studio with Fearless with Jennifer Love. Thank you for joining us, and we will have more conversations, I think, in the future.
Absolutely.
Good.